What's up YouTube? My name is Caden and you're watching Gasset Garage. Today we are doing part 7 of the Yerf Dog go-kart project. Alright, so in the last video of this project, we got the main framework started for the front suspension, and I also built my own custom spindles for this thing with heim joints, a threaded rod, some pieces of tubing, and these big giant chunks of round stock that I had to drill through. And this framework is just tacked together right now, and I also have to add a couple more pieces of tubing. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. And then after I get the rest of the tubing done, I'm going to start making the tabs that I'm going to mount the A-arms to. And then after those are done, then we can start actually making the A-arms to weld on to each one of those tubes right there. So I'm going to go ahead and get started cutting and notching some more tubing for this right here, because I want to put a piece right here, a piece right there, and a piece here and a piece there going up to those corners, and maybe some others if I feel that's necessary. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Now that I have this front frame all tacked together and set up the way I like it, now I can finally weld the whole thing together and make it solid. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so I finally got this thing all welded together nice and solid, and it is not going anywhere, even though the welds look like absolute garbage. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start building the A-arms on these things right here. And I'm going to have to get this exactly right, because if I don't, it's going to mess up my alignment. So I'm going to have to take the extra time to measure everything out properly and weld it together without it warping or anything. And then after the A-arms are built, then I can make the tabs to weld onto here and mount the A-arms to either side. So let's go ahead and get started building the A-arms, and then I will make the tabs. right, so I was going to build the A-arms like this, but I realized my tubing notcher doesn't make that sharp of an angle, so I'm actually going to build the A-arms like this. It's just going to be a lot easier to build. I won't have as many notches to make, and it'll also set the spindles a little bit further back, which will make for better handling, I think. So we're going to try this and see how it works. All right, I have both of the left side A-arms made, and I got them as close to even with each other as I possibly could. So the next step is to weld on these onto the ends of these so I can mount them. And to do that and get it straight, I'm going to use this rod that I've got and do that and hold it on pretty much like this. And then once I get those welded on, then on this lower one, I have to cut out another cross piece to act as my lower shock mount, and I'll weld that right in here. And then after that, I can start making the A-arms for the other side. And then after I do those, then I can actually make the tabs that the A-arms will bolt onto and weld those onto the frame. So let's go ahead and get those welded on, and I'll weld on the piece for the lower shock mount. Alright, so I screwed the A-arms onto the heim joints on this spindle, and this one went on just fine, but this one, I think it may have gotten cross-threaded, and now it just will not come off. I am putting every ounce of strength I have into this thing. I'm even using some other pieces of metal to put in the tops there to try and get more leverage on it, and this thing just will not move. So unfortunately, to try and save this heim joint right here, I'm going to cut it right on that line, because all of these threads and the rest of the threads inside here are still good, I think. So I'm just going to cut it right there and probably cut this right here and just use the rest of these threads to try and salvage this. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I was able to salvage this heim joint and get it screwed on nice and clean. I don't really know what happened with the old one, why it got cross-threaded, but I was able to salvage this one and I will be able to use it. Now, this one is going to be a little bit shorter than the bottom one, which is actually good because I need the bottom one to be slightly further out than the top one to get the right amount of camber. So because these are heim joints, I still will be able to adjust the camber, but this one is about 1/2 to 3/4 inch longer than that one, which automatically gives me just the right amount of camber that I need. So now that I have that done, let's move on to building the right side A-arms. All right, I finally have both sets of A-arms pretty much done other than the shock mounts and bushings. So right now I'm going to start making the tabs that the A-arms are going to mount to. right, guys, so I have the bushings installed on both A-arms, and I got the left or passenger side set of A-arms completely mounted and welded up. And this thing has quite a lot of travel, and it's going to have even more after I trim off this little bit right here, because you can see it is hitting the heim joint right there, and that'll probably give me at least another inch of down travel. And then I may even trim that right there to get just that much more up travel. But I mean, considering how high above the go-kart that is, I don't even think my suspension will be even going that high. So I think I'm just gonna trim the bottom one and leave the top one the way it is, and then the same thing on the other side. But I have to say, this thing is looking pretty cool. I'm glad I went with this design versus the other design that I mentioned earlier. It just seems to work better and it kind of looks cool. So I'm pretty happy with it so far. And I would mount the other side, but I am just out of time to film this video. And plus I still need to go out and buy some bolts to actually mount that thing. So I gotta end this video here, guys. So thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button and leave a comment. And I will see you in part 8 of this project.